No hammer. There you go. I'd like to call this regular planning board advisory meeting together. Today is Tuesday, December 10th. And at this time, we'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance by Steve Forney, followed by the invocation from Dr. Lasan.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, just thank you for this night that we can come together as an advisory board. We haven't met in a little while, but there is business to take care of here for the city of Jacksonville. We are honored to come before you and ask for your blessing upon this city. We're moved into a holiday time, and yes, it can be cheerful, but it also can be very saddening for a lot of people. I ask for your blessings on each of the members here as we conduct this business. I ask for blessings upon the town and all the citizens here, and then how we grow, and we grow in the right way. And just thank you for blessing this community with the military, with our first responders, and anyone and everyone out there that takes care of us within the healthcare field. All the laborers, thank you for the blessings of life, that we have jobs, help those people who are looking for jobs, and just look out for our families during this time. And more importantly, we just keep focus on what this season's really and truly about, and that we bring joy to our lives, just knowing that we're here and you will take care of us. And we just thank you for blessing this nation, that we are strong. We have our faults, but we are strong. And thank you for this evening. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I'm sure everyone has got a copy of the agenda. If there are no changes, a motion to approve the agenda is in order.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Motion by Steve Forney to approve the agenda as presented. May we have a second?
Second.
Second from Al Keys. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, like. Motion passes. Review and approval of minutes. We'll take a look at your minutes, see if we need to make any corrections. Hearing no corrections, a motion to approve is in order.
Motion.
Motion to approve by Dr. Lasan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Forney. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes. City Council update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a long time since we've met, hasn't it? August 20th here, on August 20th of this year, we approved the following UDO text amendment to Article 5.5. I think we're doing 5.2 tonight. Exterior lighting, and then 7.5, correction of non-conforming site features. And then on September 17th, we also approved another UDO, 5.1, off-street parking, loading, and circulation. And we also have discussed ETJ reduction. As y'all know, with the change in the state law, we're not allowed to do involuntary annexation anymore. So we really can't annex ETJ anymore, which was the original intent of ETJ, to help prepare those areas for future annexation. But because we don't have involuntary, and most of the time most people are not going to voluntarily vote to come into the city unless they need water or sewer. We have some jurisdiction, planning jurisdiction. We have nuisance abatement and so forth. But we really don't get any money out of it. We don't tax them. The only time that we get any money is if somebody comes in and wants a building permit in that ETJ. And sometimes the money we take in covers the cost of going out and do the inspections, and quite often it doesn't. So we've been under the last few years, we've been slowly reducing our ETJ area. You might have heard the little conversation with Dr. Woodruff prior to the meeting, but looks like we were given two options not long ago online, and we voted, and apparently we're going to keep a little bit more than what I voted for, but that's okay. I didn't have any strong feelings one way or the other. We're primarily focusing on keeping the major thoroughfares into Jacksonville within the ETJ, so that we do have some control over zoning and buildings coming in to try to, make sure that the development along those major corridors occurs. However, we've been, as a general rule, getting rid of vacant lots and/or subdivisions that we have we've had situations where I guess somebody on one side of the street was in the ETJ and had to get a city permit, and somebody across the street was not, and that just caused some hard feelings. And so we're slowly divesting ourselves of the ETJ, except along some of the city main corridors. Any questions? Good. Don't ask me about any of these UDO stuff. I don't remember all the details. I do remember us talking about some of the fencing and so forth, as y'all do too. So we had quite a bit of discussion on that. So thank you, sir.
I do have a
You do have?
question. Where we do hang on to UDO, do we get any taxes from any of that?
No. We're not allowed, if they're in the ETJ, they are not in the city, and we are not allowed to charge city property taxes. So really all we're hanging on to, the major intent is for us to hang on to what I would call vacant lots along the main thoroughfares into the city, so that we do have some control over that development. But other than that, the only thing we get is permits, and what else? I'm sure there's something else, Ryan, we get probably can charge for.
We get the permit revenue, whether it be zoning permits, building permits, it's the land use regulations, building control, or building plan, the state building code, zoning, subdivision, stormwater.
But if we get a nuisance call, if somebody says, I don't like so-and-so's put trash in their yard, or they're not cutting the grass, under the terms of our agreement with Onslow County, we do have to go out and abate nuisance in the ETJ. So, and again, that's a non-revenue, that's just a cost for us. So we're trying to pull back from those types of situations where we're not getting any benefit from providing any sort of service.
So the board will see that ETJ reduction in January, and then we'll bring forward that to City Council in February. We've had some preliminary discussions with county staff just to make sure that they're aware that this is in the pipeline, and then we will work with them to kind of define the effective date to make sure that they have an opportunity to, we'll give them the shapefile data, the GIS data, so they can begin to assign the county zoning, and we'll coordinate with them an effective timeline so that our zoning stays in place to give them time to establish their own zoning, because by statute, it would only be able to, I think, stay the cities for 60 days, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly. So we want to make sure that we coordinate that appropriately. So planning board, you'll see that next month. And then now that we know the area, we'll get that to the county, and then we'll have some discussion with them. So it may be before planning board in January, but it may not be in front of city council until March. We haven't got that far ahead, but you should see that at your meeting in January for action. So you'll see the areas and put forth a recommendation that we'll take to council, and then let the county begin to establish their zoning rules so they can go through their process as well. The North Carolina General Statute doesn't define how you get rid of an ETJ. It establishes how you get ETJ. So throughout our discussions with the UNC School of Government and looking at the general statutes and analyzing that, we've just decided we'll just do the same thing that we did to get it. So that way, we dot the I's and cross the T's, since it's not set in stone. So we'll advertise, and then the county will also follow their advertising rules when they go to establish the zoning. So
Reverse engineering.
pretty much.
That's a little disturbing to me. It seemed like there would be some reciprocity, because if they're in the UTJ and we're providing, like we have been doing, the various services, you'd think there'd be some reciprocity there whereby somebody
We'd get a little bit of money to offset it. Yeah, that's just the way it's set up.
It's just the opposite. As a landowner or property owner in the city, their per 1,000 rate is higher than the county. I mean, the county is higher than the city. Seems
We
weird.
want to make sure that we don't get rid of Mr. Breedlove either from the area.
Yeah.
Are we aware of that when we look at those?
No, but it's one of those things to where the county can appoint somebody that's outside the area if they don't have somebody that's within.
I did not know that. I thought it had to be within the.
We've actually, I think our last two, that's kind of happened in terms of they came out of the area, but so we had to ask that question before. And then because they didn't have any applicants within the ETJ, they're allowed to appoint somebody. So, but we can certainly look at that. I can't tell you off the top of my head if you're in or out, because we've been kind of waiting to find out whether we're doing A or B, and now we have that option, so. But we'll look at that.
What you said, it may not matter if they've appointed him. It may not matter anyway,
Correct.
since he's a county employee, appointed.
Thank you very much for the city council update. Thank you, Ryan. There being no old business, we'll go right to new business. Who's up?
Well, both of us, but I'll take the lead on these two. Good evening, planning board members. Tonight we have two Unified Development Ordinance text amendments. The first one tonight is pertaining to 5.2 landscaping standards. Recently, there was a question that came up. Well, let me back up. So our new standard slide, if you will, kind of when we look to create a Unified Development Ordinance, we kind of look at the issue. What issue are we having, or what issue is our citizen having? So in this particular case, the intent of the slope requirements for the detention pond amenities versus what does the code say? We've evaluated it. We look at the ordinance, we look at the impacts, and then we decide whether we're going to prepare an amendment, which we did. We drafted that amendment. We're here for your recommendation. And then this will be brought forth to the city council for public hearing and consideration in January. But basically, recently a question came up about the 10-to-1 slope requirements for stormwater amenity ponds. And I thought I would give you a little bit of information because I think it's relevant to the intent and the expectations that the planning board, city council, and staff has had all these years and how we've applied the standard, although it was recently questioned. So it was created back in 2010. We started talking about the slope requirements back when we started talking about the revised landscaping that was approved back in 2011. We brought forth that same language with the Unified Development Ordinance when it was adopted in 2014. And we've consistently applied that through the development plan applications. However, because of a recent question, we realized that clarity, the intent of what we had intended, it needs to be a little bit more clear in the code, and that's why we're here. Well, while we reviewed that code, we saw two footnotes that needed to be revised, and that also referred to two different sections. One was the incorrect section, so we're gonna make that correct. And then one was from a former table in the old zoning ordinance, and we're gonna create some language there that I'll go over here in a moment. But if you recall, back in 2010, we showed this slide, that specific slide we shared with the planning board and city council. And what we're talking about is for ponds that are up front, not fenced, we said they had to be amenities. You cannot fence them. But you had to have a 3-to-1 slope above the water line. And then you had to have a 10-to-1 slope for the first 10 feet. That's what we shared with everybody. Planning board, city council, and that's what we've applied. But that first 10 foot is not in the code. So you can have a 10-to-1 slope in 6 feet. You can have 10-to-1 slope in 1 foot. It's 10-to-1, you can do it. The intent was to have a vegetative slope so that when the water in the pond starts, you would have to walk out 10 feet before you got to a foot of depth, and then it could fall off. The idea behind that is since there's no fence around these amenity ponds, it gives somebody the opportunity before they walk out 2 feet and then go over their head. There's a 10-foot shelf for that realization to occur. Allows people to react one way or the other. But somebody came to us and said, well, you know, we want to do it in 6 feet. Stormwater rules only require 6 feet. We'll do a 10-to-1 in 6 feet. That's not the intent. The intent of the code was that we would have a 10-foot vegetative shelf. So we are proposing to add that clarity that you'll see in attachment A on page, oh, we didn't number the pages. Sorry about that. In the ordinance, you'll see that 10-to-1 on the second page of the ordinance, right about middle of the page, where it says configured as a site amenity, and we say that you got the slope of 3-to-1 or less above the 10-to-1 vegetative shelf, and we put in there a minimum width of 10 feet to make it clear. So the intent will be more clear than it is currently. And so with that, that's what we are proposing and asking for your recommendation, and we hope that we get your support on that. And then the other minor adjustments, the first bullet, the director versus city manager, well, that's going to be covered with the agenda item number 2. But since there was 3 or 4 references, we went ahead and made it clear with this one as well. But then to the footnotes that I mentioned a moment ago, one of the comments referred to a previous shrubbery table where it had literally specific shrub types and their scientific names. That's not in the UDO anymore. So we're proposing to add language that states, instead of that appendix C, it will be the developer shall use native vegetation found in the natural community that is suited to the soil, topography, and hydrology of the area. So that allows them a lot of leeway for the shrubbery type. It just needs to be a native species. So don't try to bring, I don't know the scientific name, but a Florida palm tree that will not survive here. Don't bring that and try to plant that as a required shrub type. Believe it or not, there's invasive species. We don't want something that could harm the natural vegetation in the area. So that's why we're proposing to list that. They can work with their landscape architects, the landscaping companies to come up with whatever that is, as long as it's native vegetation to the area. So that's one of those minor changes that we mentioned. And then the cross-reference references Part E currently, and it should be referencing to Part D, which is the landscaping requirement. So just an item of clarification. And once we make those 2 corrections, the formatting of the UDO, the footnotes disappear. So the footnotes will no longer be there. So that's all that we have for this proposed text amendment, and we look forward to your recommendation and any discussion or questions that the board may have.
I've got a couple, and this is strictly housekeeping type things.
Okay.
Across from what you were talking about, where you've got 6 general standards for landscaping, you go down, you've got E struck through. Now, does that mean the rest of that paragraph should be up under D?
Negative. That's that would still say E.
It should still be E.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
So the embedded formatting, good question.
Because I got another one too.
Yeah, the embedded formatting has been challenging to say the least.
Okay.
We try to copy and paste and then strike through and underline. And then once the changes are adopted, getting that back into the code. For example, like on this second page under 2A1, if you look at the UDO today, we're allowed to renumber. If you look in there today, it's actually
2AI.
1A, and it should be the other way around. So the formatting has been a challenge, and I think part of that's because the UDO, when it was drafted, it was not drafted in a Word document, but we required the vendor to get it to us in a Word document. So they converted it somehow.
Sure.
And so that embedded formatting that they had converted to Word has been challenging, to say the least, for us.
And the last one, or the next one I have, where it said required by part, strike through E, D, landscaping requirements. Flip the page. And I'm thinking where it says landscaping there, you should have your subparagraph D,
No.
and it should be requirements.
D is not included
Oh,
within
okay.
the text. We only sent We did not include the Part D landscaping requirements that it's referring to.
Okay, but if
Because
it's
we weren't
on,
proposing any changes to it. We're
sure,
just wanting to point at that other section.
granted, but
Unless I'm
even
not
so,
understanding
if you take a look, and this is still part of paragraph 2,
B2, okay.
A, B, C, flip the page, would that naturally be D? Because it's not a topic that's standalone with no numeric value. Again, just housekeeping to look at.
So you're talking about landscaping at the top of?
Yes,
Okay, so that's, I don't disagree that there's something we need to look at there, but that is the landscaping that's required for the actual site amenity.
okay,
So not for like the parking lot landscaping, but we will look
understood.
at that.
But it would normally, if it's following track, there should be either a 3 up there on landscaping, which there isn't. And even so, when you look at it, you got 1 purpose, 2 configured as a site amenity. Bring the page, 2 configured as a utility.
So 2 should be a 3 configured as a.
Unless landscaping up here should be a 2.
No, it might need to be a D though.
Yeah. But 2 should definitely become 3.
Correct, and we'll look at that, and I appreciate
Okay.
you bringing that up, but it's, that D that's being referenced is
A different,
in another
Okay.
part, and that's where it talks about the parking lot landscaping, the one tree for every, within 50 feet of every parking space, 1 tree for every 10 parking spaces, the 5 shrubs. But thank you for bringing that up.
Question or comment. When you talk about shrubs recommended for use around retention ponds, is that around the perimeter as opposed to part of the slope?
That would be above the water line. Most of the time people put that outside the fence if a fence is required. You know, whether it's actually part of the slope or not. I mean, as long as it's on the perimeter.
I was looking at some of these heights are pretty tall to be down as part of the slope.
A lot of it depends on the grade of the development. Some of these sites are being raised 3 or 4, 5, 6 feet to get the water to run off to the pond. And, you know, it may be that the parking lot's here and then it starts to slope down and that perimeter lawn goes around on that slope, so.
So the base of that slope would typically be 8 feet, 10 feet.
It's all based on the ratio to be a 3 to 1. 2 to 1 they allow sodded, but it depends on, it's associated with the pond, it's gotta be 3 to 1 above a 10 to 1 slope.
So you couldn't have a narrow retention pond where you would never get 10 feet down. So it's gotta be a minimum of 20 feet wide.
I don't wanna misspeak in terms of the dimensions, as long as it's 3 to 1.
Yeah,
You could have your parking here and it could slope downward at a 3 to 1.
yeah.
And that required shrubs and trees would be
Yeah.
on that slope around the pond.
Any other questions? If not, then a motion to approve or deny would be in order. What's your pleasure, Clint?
Recommend approval.
Motion to recommend approval by Al Keys, second by
second.
Steve Forney. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
The public interest statement.
Oh, yeah, you gotta read that, Al.
Let's see. Public interest, what page is that?
Approve the New York text amendment found attachment A.
Yeah, public.
I think it's just recommended
Yeah, that's all we
approval
have
of the
in the
UDO
motion.
That's
text.
a UDO.
That's all you
text,
got.
Yeah, because I'm
Amendment.
not seeing the public interest here.
Because
Yeah.
it's
Right above action needed, I'm sorry, right above on the first page.
Uh-huh.
on the first one.
On the very first.
Are there an action needed?
Action needed.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
about what it does.
Okay, then recommended approval based on the action needed, consideration of the UDO ordinance text amendment. The text amendment is found in attachment A, advances the public interest by adding clarity and eliminating conflicts within the current ordinance.
Motion's made, second, Steve?
Second.
Second by Steve. Any questions? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, like. Motion passes. B,
This will probably be one of the easiest text amendments that we've ever given you. We've already been working on this, every time we've had a little section. And we tried to figure out, to give you guys an ordinance that basically identified all 300 or some odd references. It'd probably be easier just to say, look, everywhere that refers to the Development Services Director in the Unified Development Ordinance, we're gonna change that to the city manager or their designee. And that way it allows structures, organizational structures to ebb and flow based on the management's, as the manager sees fit in terms of if he has a director of this, if he has a director, or she has a director of that, it gives us the most flexibility. And on the previous amendments, we said his or her. We're gonna change that to their, so we'll modify everywhere in the ordinance to where it will now say the city manager or their designee. So anywhere that it currently says Development Service Director will be revised to say the city manager or their designee. And that's all there is to it. I mean, it's just more of a house cleaning item more so than anything. Once again, I apologize on this one as well. I should have, in the action needed, I should have put the clarity under the recommendation line on that one as well, so I apologize. But if you don't have any questions, or you'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have with this item.
hearing no questions,
Makes sense.
please make your motion with consideration of the UDO text amendment and the sentence that follows that. Anyone care to make the motion?
Motion to recommend approval, the consideration of the Unified Development Ordinance text amendment. The text amendment found in attachment A advances the public interest by adding clarity and eliminating conflicts within the current ordinance.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, like. Motion passes. It's time for reports.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple items, in case the folks in TV land or the board members haven't heard, I thought I'd bring this up because I think that it touches the planning board in more than one way. Dr. Hassan's son recently took part in a construction project, if you will, where he created some recreation space over at the Commons. And if you hadn't heard about it, I would suggest that you learn about it. Dr. Hassan, you are to be commended. Your son is to be commended for his hard work and effort. And what an asset that'll be for those that are wanting to get fit here in Jacksonville and utilize that property that the city obtained many years ago from the Ray property there at the Commons. So just like to say thank you, on behalf of the planning department, that's quite an awesome thing that your son did there. The second thing is, hope that everybody has a happy holiday and New Year. And as always, we appreciate each and every one of your service to the citizenry by taking out time from your day and your family time to come in here and help us plan for the city. And we appreciate that. And it's been another successful year. And we look forward to 2020. That's all that I have.
I would just like to say thank you on behalf of my son, especially the city council and how much they've been so supportive. Our city manager has just been so wonderful to work with. Quite an undertaking for a 16-year-old to take 15 acres that the city provided for him. There are actually, unless the city, people have read about, and those listening watching on the TV, go out there. It's out there by the commons. It's over near the tennis courts and the ball fields. There is a gateway up, so it designates that area. There's 14 workout stations. Behind that, until the other gateways are up, you'll see a blue and white arrows that indicates how to get into the running trails. Those paths are approximately 0.6 miles. And we got runners, walkers, get back in there. Once you get back in there, it kind of weaves its way in and out around that property. I've been back there many times, helping clear that area out. It's very wide. The paths are probably cut good 4 to 6 feet wide. Plenty of room. Don't feel like people are on top of you. But take advantage of it, because it was an idea that was born as a need of my son for his Eagle Scout project, along with the city, and it turned out to be very special. But it's there for the citizens of this community. So take advantage of it, because when you get back in those woods, it's very peaceful, and you will be quite amazed what's back there. So I'm just so thankful how the city of Jacksonville helped him out, and everybody that's been involved. So just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Congratulations, I know you're very proud, as are we. Any other business? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Thomas. Meeting's adjourned.